if you are also someone who loves to read, I'm sure you all must have heard of Bookstagram and BookTube. Now, these are the places that myself included and a lot of us go to find some book recommendations. And you will find a lot of those over there, which has led to this. I'm just kidding. I've been reading since I was a kid. But there are so many books that I have actually put on the shelf because I saw them on Bookstagram and BookTube and I actually read them this year. And so I will be sharing with you in this video if those books were worth the hype or were they an actually a complete waste of time. So let's begin. So the first book that I want to talk about in this video is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. If you guys read, I'm sure you all must have heard about Colleen Hoover, and you all must have especially heard about It Ends With Us because the movie with Blake Lively just came out, and that is why I picked up this book. Now, this is not my first Colleen Hoover book. I had read Verity by her earlier, but I really loved it at that point of time, but I have since read better. So I wasn't really inclined to pick up this book, but I was preparing for to watch that movie because I'm also that kind of a person who wants to read a book first before watching the movie. And I was pretty disappointed when I read this book. Now, this book talks about some really important and heavy topics like domestic violence, and which I feel is extremely important to talk about. But I just did not like the writing of this book, especially the steamy scenes. I have never cringed out more while reading a book. While reading some those spicy scenes, and I feel like this book. I wish this book had some more scenes between Lily and Atlas, but I think that is their book is the second one. It starts with us, and I'm not going to pick that up because that has extremely bad reviews. So overall, for me, this book was not. It did not meet my expectations, in short. Now, the second book that we have is The Song of Achilles. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, by Madeline Miller. I rated this book 5 stars and I cried like twice while reading this book. I am not the kind of person who cries while reading. There are only 3 books that have made me cry. Right. 3 books that have made me cry, and this was the third one. It is so beautiful. It is the best this is the best romance book that I have ever read, and I would highly recommend you to read this book. It is based on Greek mythology, but it is not something that will put you off. Now, I am also this was my first Greek mythology book. I have not read Circe by her, and never read any other book like this, but I went into this book blind, and that is what I would recommend you to do as well. And I loved the writing style, the romance, and it the emotions that it brings inside you is just crazy. And I have been searching for a book like this ever since, and I have not been able to find it. A romance book greater than this book. Please recommend me in the comments down below if you guys have any other books which are similar to this one, because I was completely in love with this. Now, the next book that we have is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, the most loved and viral book that I have seen in 2024, in entire 2024. This book has been everywhere, and rightfully so. I love the color of this book. It's very pretty, first of all, and secondly, I was extremely excited to read this book. It was so hyped up. Like I said, it just completely went viral in 2024, and I was really excited to pick this up. I rated this book I rated this book a 4 star. It wasn't a 5 star book for me because I did not feel it to be extremely high stakes. I loved the enemies to lovers, and I loved how beautiful the banter was. It just had me giggling and kicking my feet all through the book, and I feel like this is a book that you should pick up. It was very easy to understand as well. It did not have a very deep word building. So this is a book. What happens in this book is that there is a plague. So there are two kinds of peoples in this book. There are two kinds of people in this book: ordinaries and elites. And what happened is that ordinaries are the people who are just ordinary. They don't really have any power. They are powerless. And the other kind of people are elites who do have some power. And because of this plague, the king of Ilya wants to kill all of these ordinaries, and he sends his son, the prince, which is Kai, to do that. He is his enforcer, executioner. I don't know what was the term for that. But and our main female character over here, her name is Payton. Her name is Payton. So she is an ordinary, but she is posing as an elite. She's posing as a psychic, and she is thrown into these trials where she meets Kai for the second time, and that is where the whole story starts. It picks up. I felt like it was a bit too lengthy. It could have been a bit shorter, but nonetheless, it was an extremely fast, quick read. And there is actually, this will be a trilogy, I believe, and this is the first book. The second book is out as well, which is called Reckless, which I haven't read yet, but I really look forward to do that. And there's also a novella which is out, just so powerful. So this book is something that you definitely need to go and give it a read. The next book that we have is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm actually very scared to talk about this book because I know how loved Emily Henry is and I know how loved this book is. But I actually gave this book a 3 star. Maybe it was because it was so hyped up that I just went into this book with such high expectations. So that was my bad, I guess, but I did not really enjoy this book. I love Emily Henry. I loved Beach Read by her, and I do plan to reread it sometime this year. But this book just did not do that. That did not give me that feeling like Beach Read did. And I actually talked in depth about this book in my 24-hour reading challenge video. So you can go watch that video if you want to listen to my rant about this book. But I did not really enjoy it very much. That's all I'm going to say about it. The next book that I want to talk about is, I actually don't have the copy of that book right now. I have lent it to a friend. But that book is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. You all must have heard about that book as well. It is such a good fast-paced thriller. I believe I rated that book a 4.5 star. So that is extremely fast-paced. It has extremely small, short chapters that will just keep you hooked, and you would just not want to leave that book for a minute. I read that book in like 2 days, which is extremely quick for me. So if you guys want a good thriller that keeps you on edge of your seat, please go and read that book. Now, I went into that book blind as well, which is something that I would also recommend you doing as well. And that's why I'm not sharing the synopsis of that particular book. But that book was a huge, I loved it. Please do go and give that a. The next book that I want to talk about is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. If disappointment was a book, it would be this. I had seen this book everywhere. Everyone was going crazy about this book. And look, the cover is very pretty as well, but it is just not it. It did not have spice. It has some really cute characters. I loved this guy, Nate. His name is Nate. He's like a golden retriever energy, and the girl over here is like a grumpy. So it's a grumpy sunshine trope, I believe. And it has some really cute quotes. It has some really cute scenes, but it is extremely spicy. And if you like spice, I don't hate spice. I don't prefer a lot of spice scenes, that's true, but I do not hate them. But this book was nothing but spice. I feel like it had no plot whatsoever, and it was just spicy scenes. I feel like the plot got lost somewhere in that, and that is something that I did not enjoy a lot, because for me plot is the most important thing in a book, which this did not give. But if you were looking for a steamy book which is cute, has some cute lines, good quotes, and nice scenes, then you can go and pick this book. But if you want to like to read a book which is plot heavy, then I would not recommend this book. I gave this book like a 2.5 star, which is pretty low for me. Now, the next two books that I want to talk about is a series, the Fourth Wing series. This is a 5 star series for me. I gave this book a 5 star, and this I think a 4 star. But you need to, if you love fantasy, you need to read these books. These are very easy to understand, and there is a little bit of world building, but not too much. What I found a bit harder while reading Fourth Wing was the fact that was remembering so many names of the places and of the dragons. So there are dragons in this book, which I loved, because I am a huge Game of Thrones fan, especially except the last season. But I love dragons, and when I heard that this book has dragons, I just had to pick it up. So this book is actually about a girl called, I forgot the name, Violet. So this book is about Violet, who has been preparing to go into the scribe quadrant all her life, but she was thrown into the writer's quadrant because her mother is the commissioner, the chief, the general. I do not remember the exact terminology. It has been a while since I read this book. But she was thrown into the writer's quadrant, and this is actually the story of a university, of a college, where people have to, which is extremely high stakes. So you either graduate or you die. I think it's written somewhere on this book as well. So you either graduate or die. So it is extremely high stakes. People are dying everywhere. There are dragons, and it has some extremely nice enemies to lovers plus amazing friendships, and it will make you cry. And as per the ending of this book, you would want to pick up Iron Flame. Now, Iron Flame was a bit of a disappointment, I'm not gonna lie, but the ending of this book, if Rebecca Yarros does not fix the ending, I feel like we're not going to be happy about that. So I really loved reading this book as well, but it could have been shorter. It's a huge book. It has like, let me see, it has like 623 pages with extremely small text. But by the number of tabs that I have on these books, I think you can tell that I extremely enjoyed these, and you should read these too. The last book that I want to talk about is A Little Light. This book destroyed me. I cried like twice while reading this book. And like I said, I do not cry while reading books, but this one made me cry twice. It is so emotional. It is extremely lengthy as well, and it does take a little while to get into it. It's slow, but it is very, very, very sad. So if you guys don't like to read sad books, please don't read this. And do read the trigger warnings before you dive into this book. I think there are so many trigger warnings. I don't even remember all of them. But I love this book. It's very close to my heart. Would I recommend you reading this book? I would say yes, because I loved it. I gave this book like a 4.5 stars, I believe, or was it 5? I don't remember, but I gave this book a very high rating. I think I gave this book a 4. So I gave this book a 4.5 stars, and I would recommend you to read this book. But of course, please go and read the trigger warnings as well before you dive into this book, because it is very, very, very heavy. But it is a beautiful, beautiful book and extremely sad. That's all I can say about it. So that is all that I wanted to share with you in this video. Let me know if you guys have read any of the books that I mentioned in here, and I will see you in my next one.